The Great Bear Rainforest is an incredible conservation success story that protects the world's largest temperate rainforest, and incredible biodiversity like the world's rarest bear, wolves that swim between islands, salmon that serve as the lifeblood of the forest, and an array of other incredible wildlife. While this iconic ecosystem still faces many challenges, collaborations between the First Nations communities, government, and other stakeholders are serving to protect one of the most ecologically and culturally important places in the world. But what does conservation look like on such a vast, complex, and diverse area? And how is it benefiting wildlife, like the only 400 spirit bears in the world? In this video, we're gonna find out. Welcome back to our two-part series on the Great Bear Rainforest. In our first video, we went on a journey through one of the world's largest temperate rainforests, stretching along the coast of British Columbia, Canada. Be sure to check out part 1 if you want to learn all about the amazing biodiversity of the Great Bear Rainforest. We discovered that this vast wilderness, covering 6.4 million hectares, is a place of superlatives. It's home to 1,000-year-old cedar trees, 2,000-pound grizzly bears, and the rare white spirit bear, found nowhere else on Earth. We marveled at the intricate web of life that connects the forest to the sea, with salmon serving as a vital link, nourishing everything from orcas to eagles to bears, and even the trees themselves.
Welcome to the enchanting world of Canada's Great Bear Rainforest, a treasure trove of biodiversity nestled along British Columbia's Pacific coast. This vast unspoiled temperate forest is not just a sanctuary for flora, but a haven for an extraordinary array of wildlife, both on land and at sea.
But we also learned that the Great Bear Rainforest is more than an ecological wonder. For millennia, it has been home to First Nations peoples whose cultures and way of life are deeply interconnected with the land and sea.
There's one thing that I can make sure that my children pass on to the next generations is our way of life. The values that my grandmother's teaching me and the values that her grandmother taught her.
It's important to take Western science and weave it together with what we have, because what it's doing is reaffirming ancient stories and history.
In this video, we'll explore the groundbreaking efforts to protect the Great Bear Rainforest and the central role that First Nations have played in shaping a new model for conservation and sustainable development, and why all this work is crucial for protecting iconic species like the spirit bear and coastal wolves.
Imagine, it's taken hundreds, if not thousands of years for some of these forests to mature, these old growth forests, old growth trees that in some cases in the Great Bear Rainforest here are 1,500 years old. It's extraordinary, and massive, massive trees. And for those trees to mature, for the forest to mature, it's all about relationships, and those relationships take time to establish between species. When you cut on a very large scale and on a large frequency, you are destroying those relationships, and you wipe out the memory really that exists on the land between species.
The story of conservation in the Great Bear Rainforest is intimately tied to the iconic species that call this place home. In the 1990s, as clear-cut logging threatened the ancient forests, it also put at risk the future of species like the spirit bear, coastal wolves, and the salmon that are the lifeblood of this ecosystem.
For years, the forest was clear-cut by loggers. Throughout the 1990s, it became a notorious environmental battleground, with conservationists pitted against logging companies. All the while, the old-growth forest remained vulnerable, with just 7% protected.
In the 1990s, when we started the campaign to protect Canada's temperate rainforest, we'd already lost half the intact valleys to clear-cut logging, and the remaining intact valleys were already licensed to logging companies so that they would be logged out within the next decade.
The result was the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement, announced in 2006 and legislated in 2016. These agreements protect 85% of the rainforest, ensuring vital habitat for the spirit bear, coastal wolves, and a host of other species. ecosystem-based management, or EBM, was adopted as the guiding framework, recognizing that the health of wildlife populations is intrinsically linked to the health of the entire ecosystem.
Environmental groups, logging companies, First Nations, and the government announced a landmark collaboration, the Great Bear Rainforest Agreement. This put 1/3 of the forest totally off limits to logging. It also legislated a new system of lighter touch selective logging for the remaining 2/3. It gave First Nation communities $120 million to develop a conservation economy as an alternative to logging. And it established a 5-year plan to further control logging in the remainder of the forest, a major victory for environmentalists.
However, the Great Bear Rainforest faces ongoing challenges despite its protected status. Climate change, industrial development in adjacent areas, and the controversial practice of trophy hunting wolves and other species threaten the ecological integrity of this region. These factors can lead to habitat fragmentation, pollution, and stress on vulnerable and important species.
There's no model to follow in protecting this planet, to protecting wilderness, especially when a conservation proposal or an area of such conservation size had never been studied or proposed before.
But while there are still ongoing challenges, the current protected status is an overwhelming success story. Let's learn more about it.
It's absolutely extraordinary what has taken place here over the last 10 years. Nothing like it anywhere in the world. And the forest is much more protected than it has ever been.
This is where I say right now people in BC and Canada should really step up to the plate and, be responsible for the choices they're making. And it's really sad that I have to say that when this is my territory, but I'm asking for help for not just the people in BC, but all of Canada and around the world. And to be sustainable in our own territory is really what we're trying to do.
The Great Bear Rainforest Agreement put First Nations in a leadership role in managing the rainforest. This is critical for species like the coastal wolf, which has a deep cultural significance for many First Nations communities.
Central to the deal's success were the people of the First Nations, who are believed to have lived here for 8,000 years. A number of these communities skillfully brokered the deal between environmental groups such as Greenpeace, logging companies, and the government.
Through Guardians programs, First Nations are monitoring wolf populations and ensuring their habitat is protected. They're also leading research to better understand these unique wolves, which are genetically distinct from their inland cousins and known for their swimming abilities and marine diet.
And so the more time that I've had to spend studying and observing these wolves over this long period of time, the more I realize that they truly are dependent on the ocean for their survival. And few people realize that a terrestrial-based large carnivore like a wolf could actually be a great indication of the health of the oceans. And this is what we have here on the coast of British Columbia.
First Nations are also at the forefront of efforts to protect and restore salmon populations, which are central to the diet of coastal wolves and many other species, including the spirit bear.
Here we're right alongside of the salmon-bearing stream, and that really means that this creek has all the right things happening for salmon to come and spawn. So it's either bears, wolves, minks, otters, eagles, harvesting the fish, bringing it up into the forest, and that is why we have all this different life happening right here on the side of a creek. And you can see the moss is just rich, and the different lichens, everything's thriving off of what this, not only just water, but the life that comes to it helps replenish the forest.
For example, some First Nations are actively working to restore salmon habitat and manage salmon fishery sustainably, guided by their traditional knowledge and experience.
Supporting First Nations, such as the Celtic First Nation, in their bid against the industrial kill fishery, because they have a sustainable alternative. So this is up in Bella Bella, where they're trying to convince the Department of Fisheries and Oceans to stop the kill fishery, allow them to build a sustainable fishery. This is just one story of many that these coastal communities are facing as they try to protect their lands and waters.
Monitoring is also key. The Coastal First Nations Regional Monitoring System is tracking indicators of ecosystem health, from the status of salmon runs to the health of spirit bear populations. This allows for adaptive management, ensuring conservation strategies can be adjusted based on the latest data.
This is really good, one good pool, and that's the reason why I chose this spot for the camera trap. There's a lot of really good pooling spots where the fish will trap.
Oh, wow.
One of the images, that very log we walked up, the bear had climbed onto it and walked away. So, you know, this is either early morning or just as it's starting to get dark at night. Our latest word for it is moxcamal, meaning white bear. Moxcam is white and all is bear. But what everybody else knows this guy as is spirit bear.
You caught him on camera.
Yeah, so it's really nice to know that he's still using the stream here.
But there's more to conservation than just protecting the landscape. There has to be sources of revenue to continuously manage the land and seascape, and there has to be a way of doing outreach as well. That's where the role of ecotourism comes in.
My name is Marvin Robinson. I own a company called Gitgat Spirit Tours out of Hartley Bay, Gitgat First Nation. I really like my work and I like to have fun at work, and that's why I like doing it. And talking to tourists coming from all over the world. It's right in the middle of the Great Bear Rainforest, and there's never a day the same, so you're always doing something different. Change of plans, change of weather, and that's what keeps it kind of exciting. You know, we could talk about what we seen yesterday, but you're not going to see the same thing today.
So ecotourism is playing an increasingly important role in the conservation of the Great Bear Rainforest and its iconic species. Lodges like the Spirit Bear Lodge are offering visitors the chance to see spirit bears in the wild, creating a powerful economic incentive for conservation. These lodges are also supporting research and monitoring efforts. Spirit Bear Lodge, for example, works closely with the Spirit Bear Research Foundation to monitor spirit bear populations and study their behavior and ecology.
There's very few bears that can actually walk on top of you and you don't feel scared around her. She just carries that energy of the rainforest with her. And you just really feel calm when she's in the river in front of you. And knowing that her claws are going to touch my shoulder and not being scared is just a crazy, amazing feeling.
So as we've seen, the story of conservation in the Great Bear Rainforest is really the story of protecting the intricate web of life that connects iconic species like the spirit bear, coastal wolves, and salmon to each other, and to the rainforest itself. It's a story of Indigenous leadership, collaboration across sectors, and a shared commitment to a future where ecosystems and human communities can thrive together.
How important on a day-to-day basis is this agreement?
This to us really helped us in a sense of slowing things down to where it was a workable pace. This is basically like a living monument of our people. So we look at it as like a standing museum, how important it is for our culture.
As the world looks for models of conservation that can work on a large scale, the Great Bear Rainforest offers a powerful example. It shows us that with vision, partnership, and a deep respect for the knowledge and rights of Indigenous peoples, we can protect even the most vast and complex ecosystems. And if you want to learn more about the Great Bear Rainforest and any of the conservation work that's being done, you can check the links in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.
We had companies, First Nations, workers, the government, and the environmental community standing together to say we need to protect the special forest, do things differently based on science, and diversify an economy away from logging. And this is the kind of solution that we need to see applied globally. Rainforests in the Congo, in the Amazon Basin, and Indonesia remain at risk, and yet I think the Great Bear Rainforest experience shows it really is possible to find a solution, protect the rainforest, the people who reside there, and also mitigate climate change.